Common knowledge time, and time to look at some more common cards that are legal in the Pauper format. But are any of them good? Let's see. First up is Fractal Summoning. It is X Hybrid Simic. So you can pay 2 green, you can pay 2 blue, you can pay a green and a blue, or you can play a blue and a green. It's same thing, but turn around. And then X, you can throw as much mana as you want in there. But let's see why you might want to. This is a sorcery. It's also a lesson, which, Avatar is bringing lessons back. So who knows? Maybe this card finds new life these days. But Fractal Summoning says you create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token, and you put X +1/+1 counters on it. So this is always going to be a bad rate because you have to pay the 2 mana for the sorcery to begin with, and then whatever other mana you put in, that's how many 1/1 counters you get. I guess if you're a Simic deck and you're able to ramp up pretty quickly, like most Simic decks can do, you'd have more mana, so it makes sense to have something where you can dump all that mana into. Maybe you don't mind that it's a bad rate because you can pay it. You can pay the rate and more with all the mana you have. This could be interesting for decks that just want lots of +1/+1 counters. And this is a way of putting a lot of +1/+1 counters on the board to, I don't know, graft into other things, to put those counters, to move those counters around to other things, to, if you had, in Commander, I guess, if you had like an Ozolith, this is a way of putting a bunch of counters on the board that then can then go on the Ozolith, that can then go somewhere else. For Pauper, though, I guess this is a halfway decent infinite mana outlet, right? You're able to get infinite mana in some way, some combo that you have, and then you dump it all in here, and now you can make an infinitely big creature that can swing in for the win. There's almost certainly better ways of using infinite mana than this, but that is, I suppose, an option. We're gonna give this 2.5, I think. That seems high. It seems high to me. Probably seems high to you. But I do like that, at least with an X spell like this, it's playable at many different points in the game. If you just need a 3/3 out there, you can adjust your mana to say, yep, I can get a 3/3 out there. That'll be able to block this thing. Your opponent has a Tolarian Terror out there. Well, you're going to have to pay 7 mana, but if you pay 7 mana, you can have something match up with their Tolarian Terror. If you pay 8, now you can have something beat their Tolarian Terror. That's something. So there is kind of a modality to that I think is kind of cool. That's really the only reason, and I guess the infinite combo thing, but even the infinite combo thing I don't think is all that great. We'll stick with the score, though. Dwarven Soldier is, if I remember right, not very good, but I do like the art. Dwarven Soldier is 1 and a red for a 2/1 Dwarf Soldier. Whenever this creature blocks or becomes blocked by 1 or more orcs, this creature gets +0/+2 until end of turn. Not a ton of orcs out there. It's, I think, in pretty much any format. Let's go check. How many? Let's play a little game. I'll play it with you. How many orcs do you think are in Magic the Gathering total? Now, you have to remember, Lord of the Rings came out, and Lord of the Rings added probably more orcs than were ever in Magic before. So it's not going to be like 4 or something. It's going to be way more than that. But how many do we think it might be? I'm going to go with 21. That already feels high, but I'm going to go with 21. Wait, what? What? Why? Do I just have to type in orc? Orcs is not orc. Okay, creature type orc. Sorry. Oh, shit. Sorry for the swear. There's a lot more orcs than I realized. How about that? Oh, sure, because the Baldur's Gate cards, sure. There are a lot more orcs than I thought. That one's on me. That one's on me. Okay, there's more orcs than I thought, but 108 is still out of all the cards that are out there in Magic's history, 108 is a pretty small subset. And you know, if we really wanted to be pedantic, and of course we do, because you know, why else are we here? Oh, let's go to advanced again, so it gets rid of the previous stuff we did. Let's go orc, and then let's say legal in Pauper. 30. That's a little closer to what I was thinking. So are any of these good in Pauper? And kind of looking over them quickly. I don't want to, I don't want to give you too much information in case we come up to one of these guys someday. But the answer is no. Well, almost all these guys are terrible. This guy might be halfway okay, but still pretty bad. These are all pretty bad. So do you really need a card that gets +2 toughness whenever it blocks or becomes blocked by an orc? One of the 30 cards that it could possibly go up against. The answer is no. This card's a 1. Is it like a 1.1? No, I'm just gonna give it a 1. This is bad. This is a bad card. You should be fine to say cards are bad. Lead Astray is 1 and a white for an instant from Judgment. It says tap up to 2 target creatures. It's some clean magic right there. It's not very good magic, but it is clean magic. I like this art. I like Judgment. I think Judgment has a pretty good art style to it, and this era of Magic, I really like the art. I think they do a good job with the art overall. But Lead Astray is not going to be one of your big winners here. That being said, it's not terrible. It's, you can use it offensively or defensively. Hit them with a couple. Tap a couple of these creatures before they're able to attack you, or tap them down so you were able to swing into your opponent. It's okay. It's okay. I'll give this a 3.5. Pretty respectable, but also not something you really put in a deck. Captain of Umbar is 2 and a blue for a 2/3 human pirate. You can pay 1, tap it, draw a card, and then discard a card. That is a pretty normal Magic card right there from Lord of the Rings. We've had other looters that loot a little bit more efficiently than this. 2/3 is a halfway decent blocker, but 3 mana is asking a little too much for this kind of effect. It's not particularly great. I think this is a fine time to give it its power and toughness and say this is a 2.3. Next up is Goblin Motivator. For a single red mana, you get a 1/1 Goblin Warrior that can tap to give target creature haste until end of turn. I don't hate these guys. I don't think any of them are particularly good, but there are lots of Magic cards out there, lots of red Magic cards specifically, that can tap to give another creature haste. And it's kind of nice to be able to have one of these guys on the board and then play a big dragon on a future turn and then say, yep, that dragon also has haste now. Good luck. Have fun. And I think that's all right. Mostly though, you're going to want a little bit more out of your 1 mana. You want a little bit more out of your 1 drop than something like this when you're playing Pauper. Maybe this goes a little better in something like Commander, where you can kind of build up and your opponents build up, and nobody's particularly targeting this guy because it doesn't feel necessary. But you bring in your commander and you give it haste, and maybe that's something. I don't know. Not amazing here when we're thinking about Pauper for sure. So I'm going to give this a 1.5 and keep on moving. To Ariet's Whisper, it's 3 and a black for a sorcery. Target opponent discards 2 cards. You create a Wicked Roll token attached up to 1 target creature you control. A Wicked Roll token says enchanted creature gets +1/+1, and when this token is put into a graveyard, each opponent loses a life. Okay, is 2 discarded cards worth Two discarded cards and a +1/+1 counter, and potentially, eventually, 1 life lost on your opponent. Is all of that stuff put together enough to justify a 4 mana cost? And I don't think that it is. I think you'd rather just play like Wrenched Mind, I think. Mind Wrench? Wrenched Mind. That's what it's called. That's 2 black mana to make them discard 2 cards, essentially. The Okiba Gang Shinobi, that's a ninjutsu thing that can come in, and when it hits, it makes them discard 2 cards, but then you get a better creature out of the deal. I think those cards are generally going to be more useful. My biggest worry with discard spells that cost as much as 4 like this is that at that point in the game, especially if you're playing like a mono red burn list, they might not have a hand anymore. They probably just burned through all of it, and maybe burned through you in the process. There are some decks, slower decks, that would be a little bit more scared of this card, but I also think those decks will have the counterspell at that point to be able to stop this and hold on to their cards. So I don't love it on either end. Yeah, I'm just not the biggest fan of a discard spell that costs this much. I'm going to give this a 2. A 2. Next up is Spider Silk Net. It costs 0 mana. That could be something. It's an artifact that is an equipment. Equipped creature gets +0/+2 and has reach, and it gets equipped for 2. 0 mana artifact. You always kind of got to look at those and see if there's something useful. I mean, the effect itself is not particularly useful. Adding a couple points of toughness and reach is okay, I suppose, but you probably are looking for something a little bit more offense oriented out of an equipment, or out of a card that you want to put in your Pauper deck to begin with. But when it costs 0, you can throw down 4 of these on turn 1 and be well on your way to getting Affinity started for your deck. If you are looking to do that, you're probably playing something like Ornithopter more, a 0/2 flyer for 0 mana. You might play Welding Jar for 0 mana that can sacrifice itself and regenerate an artifact creature. I think that's what Welding Jar does. There's a number of 0 cost artifacts, and I think a lot of them are probably better than the effect you get out of here. But it's 0 cost artifacts, and that has some real value to it, despite not having a mana value. Exactly. We will give this a 3.2, I think. 0 really does make a big difference. Victim of Night is black for an instant. Destroy target non-vampire, non-werewolf, non-zombie creature. I'm actually a little shocked this doesn't see more Pauper play. These are werewolf kind of notwithstanding. Vampire, you see a decent amount, and zombie, you see quite a bit more. But you mostly see these creature types in black. So this is kind of just a Doomblade that hits even more black cards than Doomblade does, because Doomblade hits non-black creatures. And that's okay. Like, sure, you're missing out on a couple of important creatures in Pauper. From a vampire perspective, there's the I forgot the name of it, but it's the single red mana that comes down and deals a damage and creates a blood token. I mean, are you going to waste a removal spell on that? Not always, but he does show up quite a bit in Pauper. For zombies, you have carrion feeders and lots of mono black sacrifice kinds of things like that. But I think this is still open enough that I would not mind playing this. I don't know how many copies I have of this, but I'm going to write this down just to make sure I have at least 4. Victim of Night. I think if I played a mono black Pauper deck, I would put this in the sideboard. I'd probably have Cast Down in the main list, but I could see having this in the sideboard just on the off chance that I need to take out some more stuff and they're not playing the exact creature types that this calls out. I think this card's pretty darn solid. I'm gonna give this a 6.5, I think, which is maybe a little high, but I dig it. I think I've made a pretty good case for it. Utopia Vow is 1 and a green for an aura. You enchant a creature. Enchanted creature can't attack or block. And enchanted creature has tap, add 1 mana of any color. It's kind of interesting. From Planar Chaos, so maybe they're messing around a little bit. It's a pacifism in that you can put it on your opponent's creatures and they can't attack or block. You don't necessarily want to do that because then it gives your opponent, the creature has this can tap for mana now. So it gives your opponent a mana source, ramps them up. You don't really feel great about that. Although if it's a giant thing that's about to murder you, you'd feel better about it. But you could also put this on one of your creatures. Maybe you have a little token guy, and now he's a token that can't attack or block, but he's just another mana source for you. And it's kind of a source of ramp for you at that point. The problem is, for this mana cost, you could just play Rampant Growth and get the land on the board. And the land, I think, is infinitely more useful than a creature that can very easily die, and then you lose both the creature and the aura attached to it. That's a pretty bad deal when that happens. I guess you're getting the extra value of this being kind of a removal spell against an opponent's creature. But I think you're going to feel bad. You're going to feel bad either way when you play this, because you're either taking one of your creatures out of the possibility of combat by it not being able to attack or block, or you're giving your opponent extra mana. Neither of those feels great. I'm going to give this a 1.7. I'm not a fan of this card. Otherworldly Outburst is a single red mana for an instant. Target creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. When that creature dies this turn, create a 3/2 colorless Eldrazi horror creature token. This is okay. I mean, if your opponent is about to kill one of your creatures, this gives you an opportunity to not save the creature exactly, but get something of halfway decent value. A 3/2 for a single mana, that's a pretty good deal. It also potentially allows you to trade against an opponent and get a creature back, potentially even a better creature than the one you laid down. Outside of that, if you're just playing this for the pump ability and you don't expect the creature to die, it's not great. 1 mana for 1 power, not awesome. But I think it has enough uses and enough use cases that this should be a little bit more considered. I'm going to give this a 4.4. 4.4. I think Otherworldly Outburst is A-okay. All right. This is our last card of the day, and it is a classic one. It is Giant Octopus, originally from Portal, but I remember this 7th edition one that then went into 8th and 9th. They liked this art a decent amount. It is 3 and a blue for a 3/3 octopus. That's it. It's the whole card. It's a giant octopus. What do you want from me? It's great. It's not great in Pauper, but it is just a very nice Magic card. Real classic. I like the 7th edition that has the shorter flavor text on it, but I understand having the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea quote here is pretty good too. Giant Octopus, you're not very good these days, but you are. That's a hill giant, right? I haven't seen a hill giant for a long time, but hill giant's a 4 mana 3/3. Yeah, 4 mana 3/3, of course. So Giant Octopus, it's just a hill giant in the water. What would you give a hill giant? 1.3? Maybe a 1.3. We'll get a 1.3. I'm going to give you one more card, a little bonus card action here, and that is Scholar of Combustion. It's 3 and a red for a 3/2 human wizard, and when this creature enters, you exile up to 1 target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard. You can cast that card until the end of your next turn. That's kind of all right. So like this is also kind of a hill giant as a 4 mana 3 power creature. You know, the 2 on the toughness is a little sucky, but the value that you get out of this by having an ETB trigger, one that kind of gives you flashback in a way, that's cool. I think that's great. It's a nice way of just giving you a card back. In fact, it's kind of better than flashback since it doesn't exile the card once you play it. It just puts the card in exile, and then if you cast the card, then it would go back to your graveyard. So if you had multiple of these guys, or you're able to blink this guy, or bounce it back to your hand and then replay it, gives you the ability to play that card. Now, it's not the cheapest card in the world to play, but especially if you're just blinking it with like a Boros deck that has like ephemerate to it, or even like a Jeskai deck that that is able to use Ghostly Flicker or something. At that point, now you're talking about like Archaeomancers and other cards that might be a little better than this at doing this kind of ability. But you know, if you're not using blue and just sticking to Boros, this guy might actually be okay. Or lady, actually, it's very pretty. Seems pretty clear it's a lady over here, but I like it. I like it. I like it enough that I'm going to give it a 3.8. 3.8 seems good to me. We'll call it there. We'll see you next time on Common Knowledge. Till then.